I am NetMoverSitan, and so far, Moses, Ezra, and Uriah have got into a spot of trouble, involving artificially created distortions, created from drawing it from multiple individuals. We continue this with Chapter 13, Teddy Bear. After stopping Ezra from distorting from all the masks on her body due to being swept up by the numerous distortions in the river of flesh that was heading down to basement floor 15, by removing them with her whip, and also her bare hands, there was one more victim of the enemy of Moses' trap to deal with. Uriah Telia, the workshop maester that made their survival possible. There's no distortion on Uriah, but she was on the floor with her eyes closed. It's no ordinary coma. She separated from her sense of self, where the body is alive, but the mind was more or less dead. Her brain was still intact. So she ordered Ezra to bring her a sterilized scalpel that can cut through bone. She complied, understanding what Moses intends to do, bringing out a stasis preservation cube for that very purpose. Yeah, that's part of Eucor singularity. Along with some sterile gloves, all for the purpose of extracting Uriah's brain. Then they heard a voice shouting, "Are you guys insane?" Sorry, that was terrible. Well, you get the idea. Their attention was drawn to a teddy bear that was strapped to Uriah's waist, who told them to keep her brain inside her head and release her from that belt. They did so, knowing now that the operation was unnecessary. Uriah's mind was in her teddy bear, the small plush that's dusting itself off as Moses smoked her pipe. She could tell what the teddy bear was, and Uriah confirmed that to be the case, that it's similar to Moses' pipe. Yes, it's the power of EGO. Although Moses is unable to transfer her mind into her pipe. In both cases, it responds to emotions. When Uriah was swept away, so many thoughts were invading her head. Her teddy surrounded her to keep her safe. The desire to run from those thoughts was what resulted in her mind being transferred into one of them, as the tools that they use resonate with their emotions. There's just one problem with that. Uriah doesn't know how to get her mind back in her human body. Not that she's any rush to do so, seeing it as the opening of a new horizon, as something worth analysing rather than, well, much was to be talked about when they got back. However, Moses was still concerned about getting out of there alive, and told Ezra to carry Uriah's body. Ezra understood, knowing that it's too dangerous to put her in the dimensional bag. Uriah asking Sunbay to handle her body carefully. As for where Uriah in her teddy bear form wants to go, She wants to sit on Moses' shoulder to see things from her height. Yes, I know how it looks. In fact, Ezra was thinking that teddy bear Yuria on Moses' left shoulder looked good on her, ignoring the fact that she's still injured. They're all safe now. They just need to find a way out of that underground warehouse. There was no exit, no drain, but the wall was made of a material that felt like glass panes used in laboratories. One-way mirrors. Yes, she figured out that someone was watching from behind that wall, which was a one-way mirror. This resulted in someone clapping from behind them. This revealed a dark silhouette which told them that they got there in one piece. Well, more or less. Puts the dark silhouette's backs against the wall and even saved her colleagues and kept herself alive. And the results? They're now bankrupt! As for what the produce company in the back streets was doing meddling with creatures like them, Moses was asking if they're a secret weapons supplier. It's a bit worse than that. This dark silhouette told them that they were ambitious, aiming to become a wing. Well, you certainly have the questionable morality at best, considering what's going on. And Yuria pointed out that L Corp fell in the south, so there's certainly an opening. They continue to talk with them, saying that they dreamt big. They've acquired a lead on Lobotomy Corporation's Singularity after paying a great price. It's about enkephalin, the so-called eco-friendly energy. Moses was asking how it all ties in. Well, to herself. Distortion, energy, Lobotomy Corporation. Well, they're onto something. Yeah, enkephalin was made from the pain and suffering of humans working on abnormalities. Which is also a narcotic drug. Then, this dark silhouette let Moses ask one question as a prize for making it there alive, and a reward for leading their company to ruin. Moses was barely holding it together due to a pounding head, broken ribs, burns on her hand, freezing cheeks, wounds on her chest. That and Ezra was carrying Yuria's body, yet was straining to stay conscious herself. Asking who they were seemed pointless. Moses told this dark silhouette that she just wanted to leave, not having time for this kind of conspiracy, seeing it as a Pyrrhic victory as it is. Their tormentor asked if she's okay with that. This opportunity wouldn't come often. She's sure. Then the elevator opened. There would be no tricks this time, as if they wanted the fixers of Moses' office, along with a workshop maester, to be dead, they wouldn't even make it that far. Moses decided to leave before they reconsidered. With the doors closed, she heard that person speak of losing something, someone else being right, and a name that's quite familiar to her. Diaz. Ah yes, the one that the Ujats follow, the orders of. The Ujat appears to be a Grade 1 fixer office, but it's more like a syndicate of Lady Deas. She's one with pure ambition. That ambition being to take power. As for when Deas was spoken of, this enraged Moses. They clearly have a history. She wanted the one that spoke that name to tell her what they meant when they spoke that. She wanted to get through the doors to ask them. This concerned Uriah, asking what was wrong. Ezra blocks her, obviously seeing this coming, as Uriah landed on the floor, understanding the situation. She knocked Moses out, as surviving was a priority for them. Chapter 14, Psychoment, takes place not that long after when they get back to Moses' office after getting out of Tai Young Produce Company, while not dying, with Moses regaining consciousness after Ezra knocking her out to stop her from making an irrational decision. Moses told her that she shouldn't have stopped her. Ezra told her that there was no reason to risk her life for information on Diaz, as they'll be leaving to see her in 2 weeks anyway. This calmed Moses down somewhat. A missed opportunity that shouldn't be focused on. Uriah was still in teddy bear form and told them that they were fortunate to be alive. He had wrapped bandages around Moses' injuries and handed her and Ezra a HP tablet. Yeah, K-Core Medical. Not sure whether it's some wonder chemical or nanotech, but we know what that does. Well, those who have played Lobotomy Corporation will know. Then Moses asked what happened to her body. Well, asking Uriah what happened to her body. Uriah told her that the plushie doll was an object that responded to her emotions. She called them Psychoments. Well, she didn't know that EGO was the term that the Lobotomy Corporation came up with. They were equipment powered by the soul. As far as Moses understood, anyway. As ridiculous as it sounds for her to speak of souls and spirituality, as Uriah's focus was technology, she's sure of that after the Crimson Point grenade. That and her mind being transferred to a teddy bear. Moses wanted to know what the ribbon did to her pipe. Apparently it was an experiment, where the decoration of the Cyclement was meant to open up its potential, where the Cyclement's gear manifested from strong determination or feeling. If it was more accessible to many in the city, it would change everything as far as the city's ecology and the workshops were concerned. Well, I can think of one fixer that thought the same thing, and it's not any that's a part of Moses' office. Moses' Cyclement was a tool manifested from emotions that can be directly used. Uriah's Psychoment was a remote-controlled one. Uriah has only seen 5 so far. Hers was the most impressive that she'd seen. The Crimson Point cylinder construct erase the space within it. She then asked if she could see the distortion in her. Moses confirmed that she couldn't. Her theory was that the Cyclement was a distortion physically removed from a person, which was why it couldn't be seen in those that have the Cyclement. Yeah, stable emotions as opposed to unstable ones. It certainly made sense to made sense to Moses. Yeah, I know, almost said that name. Which wasn't entirely relevant for what we're talking about, Oh, let's just move on. Yuria then asked how she got that smoking pipe. Moses asked if she really wanted to know, that if she tried to dig deeper, she might get so entangled in this there's no escape. Asking Ezra if that's right. Ezra wasn't talking. And Yuria told her that she swore to devote herself, in fact her whole life, to Psychoment. Moses understood that she wanted to know, and how determined she was to know. And since the other source is too risky to enter, Moses asked herself why that smoking pipe ended up in her hand, and even how she knew how to use it, as her memories were fragmented of that day, as were the emotions tied to it. It's why she's chasing after the distortion. They're heading to District 11 to find out. It's a trip that she didn't think that she'd come back on. Yuria was disappointed to learn that Moses didn't know herself. Moses wants to know more desperately than anyone, as the distortion has made her suffer too much and caused too much to be sacrificed. She wanted to thoroughly exploit Yuria from that point onwards. Yuria doesn't mind that, if it means that she can learn more about her Cyclement and the emotions that form it. Moses found it slightly amusing that she's handshaking Yuria in her teddy bear form. As for what's next, it can wait until the next day. Yuria reminding Detective Moses to take her HP tablet. Ezra wanted to talk with Yuria more. Moses let her as she went to bed. Apparently, the Korean word for Psychoment is Sinbi, but it focuses more on the soul than the mind than the English word. Cyclement roughly translating to mind instruments. Yeah, some things can be lost in the translation. Next is Chapter 15, Vespa Crabro. The next day, Moses awoke to the midday sun. Most of her injuries were healed overnight, thanks to that K-Corp HP tablets. She found Ezra having lunch at the table. She asked if Moses had a good rest. Ezra was largely back to normal. What was weighing her down had largely dissipated. Moses confirmed that she did and asked Ezra if her body was alright. She confirmed that it was, asking if the detective wanted lunch. Moses didn't have an appetite. She headed to the terrace, and then remembered that she needed to look into a few things that day, asking Ezra if Uriah was in her room. Ezra confirmed that she was. She was inspecting the black box that they brought from Tai Young Produce Company, which impressed Moses and left Ezra at her lunch. She knocked on the door of Uriah's room and Uriah invited her in, which revealed a familiar stairwell, the same set of stairs in Uriah Tellier's workshop. She theorized that it was an effect of Psychoment. She walked down the stairs, and thankfully, there were no bears attacking this time. The corridor was decorated with ribbons. Either she adorned it herself or she had her teddy bears do that. This workshop was more compact than last time, and 8 teddy bears were around the workbench engaging in her craft. Uriah greeted Moses, and Moses had a problem with her modifying the office building, as she still had a number of months of rent to pay off. So she did have some debt to pay off. Uriah wasn't concerned by this, as it can be reverted at any time, confirming to Moses that the Cyclement is her own atelier. She can also freely control the teddy bears. As for how to get her mind back into her original body, that's harder to do, as she doesn't know that much about Cyclement. That's one thing to work out how to do. As for what will happen if something goes wrong with her original body, she'd die, as Cyclement comes from the mind. If the mind dies, the Cyclement dies with them. And she doesn't want to put that to the test by causing harm to her original body. As for sustaining it, it'll be fine as long as she's on life support and nutrition is given. But she's more concerned about the black box recovered from Tai Young Produce Company. It was made from an unknown material. That's possibly due to L-Corp singularity. Moses asked if she was implying that it had been leaked. Well, Uriah hinted that it was possible, as it had collapsed anyway. Moses considered that it's at least made from remnants of a singularity. Some singularities come off patents after the wing holding it breaks. Well, the tattoo that enhances the body of the Stray Dog Syndicate is proof of that. Uriah suspects that to be the case. Either that or it was scavenged from one of the sealed branches, such as the one from the Wonderlab comic series. Either that or they somehow got into their HQ. Moses was more interested in learning about what the black box does. Uriah told her that it sucks in distortions like a certain cute pink demon when food is in front of him. Moses asked if it was a Psychoment. Uriah suspects that it might be. All one form from artificially created minds and emotions. Ooh, now that's a taboo, much like recording camera footage in District 14. To do anything more, Moses understood that they needed to learn more about the distortion and the Psychoment. Uriah understood after climbing on Moses' shoulder. That's why they're heading to District 11. As for what they should do with Uriah's body when they leave, She was thinking about that, and she had a few ideas. But she was focusing on the distortion. They had a few requests waiting to be read. They left the room, and it was revealed that they had a visitor, and Ezra wasn't looking too happy about this. The bright yellow jacket embroidered with a black hornet. Those two katanas that he had on his person. They weren't a show. He was clearly not big on stealth based on how he dressed. And it was unclear if he was a member of a syndicate or if he was a fixer. They were about to find out. He greeted her. Moses asked Ezra who he was, as he clearly wasn't there to give them a request. Ezra was nervous and was about to introduce him, but he finished as he sat up. He was Vespa Crabro, a taboo hunter, a fixer working directly for Encore. And at this point, Moses understood how much they were in, as Yuria recorded them with video footage, and she was acting like a lifeless plushie on her shoulder, not wanting to draw more attention than necessary. He received reports that Moses' office knows about someone who violated the taboo of District 14. This person was Yuria of Yuria Telia, asking if she's seen her. Moses lied to him, saying no. Vespa spoke of several people on the street testifying that they saw them enter that workshop. He was lacking in evidence, which would require recording footage, which was forbidden in District 14. It was unclear if that includes photographs, but it certainly applies to video footage. Vespa thought about this and told her if they happened to witness Yuria, to inform him at his address, giving her his business card. Then Moses had Ezra escort him outside. Vespa whispered that her plush was cute as he left. It was unclear what Yuria thought of this, but Moses understood what they needed to do now. She ordered Ezra to pack up, understanding the trouble that Yuria had put them in. Now we have Chapter 16, Daogui Combat Office. After a troubling encounter with Vespa Crabro, one of N-Corp's taboo hunters, who was after Yuria for breaking the taboo of District 14, recording footage, they were staying in an average hotel room with 2 beds. On one bed we have Ezra, Moses, and Yuria in teddy bear form. On the other bed was Yuria's body. Yuria was complaining about the humidity of the room, which risks the cotton growing mold. Yuria, that's the least of your worries right now, considering that Moses was silently angered, as she possibly knowingly broke the taboo to keep them hostage, out of risk of them being seen as accessories to her violation. She'd hit her on the head if it would make her feel pain. They were hiding there to get out of the taboo hunter's eyes. They can't be avoided. This fixer was at least grade 2. It wasn't common to send a fixer of that grade to deal with one that broke that taboo by filming a fight in the backstreets. She suspected that it was something worse than that. Moses asked Yuria if she had a track record of breaking taboos. Yeah, Yuria silently confirmed this. Well, the taboo hunter would be unlikely to be grade 2 if... she wasn't a serial offender. It's likely why she had her customers come to her, and they needed a membership to do business with her. Moses, upon receiving silence, decided to cut and run, saying that it's the end of their relationship. Ezra said that it was fun while it lasted. Yuria told them that they're in the same boat regardless. Moses asked why they should risk their augmented to protect her. They come before investigating distortions or Cyclement, and Vespa Crabro was a taboo hunter. I mean, those two can hold their own in combat, but they weren't a combat-oriented office, so they wouldn't last as long in battle against a combat specialist. Yuria said that it was for Cyclement and told them that she re-watched the videos of their previous battle against what I could only describe as Ghost Spider Hulk. The recording apparatus was built into the night vision goggles. Yeah. They were recording that entire day, at least until the River of Flesh took them off. Moses was annoyed at, well, being an accessory, albeit an unknowing one, to that violation, and asked why she didn't tell her. Yuria replied that at best, they'd stop her, and at worst they'd kick her out. She needed to record Psychoment and distortions to get her research anywhere. It was all to expand her understanding of this phenomenon. As annoyed about this as Moses was, she was willing to overlook this time. But if she hides details that consciously put them in danger again, they're done. Yuria understood. Then Moses asked what she thought of Vespa. Yes, asking Ezra, due to her keen sense with combat and her enjoyment of fighting. Ezra basically told her that they'd be if they took him on, as he's fought more battles than they have. Yeah. His power might even exceed Han Hee-jun, which confirms that he's grade 2 or higher. Ezra asked if she could defeat him with her pipe. Ezra, she might be able to take down that giant skeleton distortion, but Moses was practically thinking, who the do you think I am? The Red Mist? Yeah, Moses wasn't a berserker like she was. She needed to charge up the construct to make the Crimson Point, even if Ezra bought Moses some time like last time. As Yuria suggested, she told Junior that she didn't think that she could stall him at all. There's a clear difference between fighting a mindless beast and a seasoned combatant. They were silent for a time as they thought of a plan to save their Moses understood that they'll have to outsmart this Hornet, as fighting him would be suicidal. Yeah, they should avoid fighting him. Yuria suggested fleeing District 14. Moses considered that, but it wasn't that simple, as they have 2 weeks before they can take the warp train, and the Taboo Hunter could catch up with them easily if they drove there. Then Ezra had an idea. Hire a strong fixer to fight for them. Moses thought that to be a good idea initially, but Ezra didn't have any connections with any grade 2 or higher fixers that specialize in combat. And it's unlikely she has connections with fixers in general that are grade 2 or higher. They wouldn't take it even if she did, as to oppose a fixer that works directly for a wing was much the same as opposing the wing itself. Ezra understood that once they meet up with Han Hejun in District 11, he won't be able to touch them directly. Unfortunately, they need to find someone to keep him off balance for the next 2 weeks. Moses asked for the most recent issue of the monthly Fixer catalogue. I wouldn't be surprised if that was used as toilet paper in the back streets when the next one comes out. Well, if it runs out, of course. Regardless, Ezra handed it to her. This catalogue was full of advertisements and promotions for quite a few offices. She flicked to the combat-oriented section and focused on that. One caught her attention. Dull Grey Combat Office. Yeah, sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. This was a Grade 2 office with no known affiliation, with 17 members and operated 24 hours a day, open all year round. Either they take any work that they can get, or they're possibly linked to a dangerous syndicate, which is why they're risky to use. However, they're a perfect pawn for their purposes, as, well, it appears that as long as the money is paid, they'll do what they're paid to do. Moses told Ezra that she's going outside. Ezra wanted to get her gear, but Moses wanted her to keep Yuria's body safe. Ezra protested as it was dangerous to go outside alone around the late evening. But Moses insisted that she protect Yuria's body, while Yuria in her teddy bear hopped onto her shoulder as she left the hotel room. The sunset of the evening street did nothing to hide the distorted people heading home from work. Their heads turned downwards, as if their lives were what they actually were: a living hell. Many had similar distortions to each other. Moses arrived at a 2-story building which had a crude signboard that read Dalgi Combat Office. The lights of this signboard had been used for many years, and the building was in worse condition than her office. she went to the second floor, and her opening the door alerted the fixers to her presence. They were smokers due to the cigarettes in their mouths, or death sticks as I sometimes call them. There were no walls separating the office space, which was a 20 payong space, which was 66 square meters or around 711 feet. This floor was grey cement. She asked where the earnings went if it wasn't on interior decoration. The one wearing sunglasses was clearly the one in charge, who asked who she wanted dead. Well, she was there to give a request. The boss noted that she looked wealthy enough to afford their services. She said that it was an inheritance issue. He found this hilarious, and his suck-ups joined in the laughter. Yeah, they seem to have less dignity than your average wing drone. He wasn't fooled. They've been through hell themselves. He asked for her business card, and she saw that he was mildly distorted as his eye sockets were empty. He thought that her office, upon looking at her business card, was into some weird then introduced himself as Zhang Li. His business card was in rough handwriting. Then he wanted her to get straight to the point with why she needs their services. Apparently she needs them to protect her office for 2 weeks. And she would let them name their price. Zhang Li understood that she's made an enemy of someone, which wasn't out of the ordinary. He also wasn't wrong about that. He then asked how many escorts she wanted. She replied, "Every fixer in his office." Yeah, Zhang Li. She's really someone off, although she's silent regarding who they're facing. They both went to the rooftop to discuss the arrangement, while indulging in their shared love of smoking, while overlooking the concrete landscape at night. Apparently, Zhang Li, upon finding out that her office specializes in solving weird and odd incidents, he spoke of his child that shut herself in her room and just wouldn't leave, where it's unclear if it's stubbornness or something outside of his comprehension in his house. Basically, solves a problem and he'll guarantee that she'll be protected. She asked for a discount on the request fee, but he laughed at that, telling her that she's just being greedy. This deal was so that they don't ask who they're up against. Which is just as well, as it's Vespa Crabro, a level 2 fixer under the direct employment of N-Corp. Yeah, that's right, a wing. Moses laughed with him, remembering another reason why Ezra was under her employ. She's better at negotiations. Moses requested an escort back to room 1306 in the business hotel on Chili Street. Oh, how appropriate, as they've certainly got some heat on them. This was in case Vespa Crabro caught up on them there. Although she didn't tell him that. Didn't tell Zhang Li that, rather. he'd send a few useful guys there. The agreement was made, and all she needed to do to get their protection, without them being told who they need to protect her from, as in someone that might risk them getting on N-Corp's back, was to investigate the strange happening in his house. We move along to Chapter 17. Aquarium. Moses decided to go straight to Zhang Li's house. He led her to it. Moses understood that it wasn't uncommon for children to lock themselves in their rooms, likely due to a trauma, although it's possible that it's distortion-based, especially as Zhang Li describes weird noises coming out of her daughter's room every night, but not for any explainable reason. It sounded like the noises that he hears during his work, gruesome and morbid, like flesh tearing and bones breaking. But it's not something that should be heard in a child's room. His daughter was screaming, and he tried forcing the door open. It pushed him away, and the noise became louder and more bruising the more he tried forcing the door open. He was unsure what to do. She was 17, and had been in that room for 8 months. Okay, how is she hydrating, never mind eating? Moses was more concerned about college entrance, as she was stuck in there rather than studying for it at school. But Zhang Li told her that she's attending a virtual school. She never missed a class, at least until relatively recently, and her grades were fine last time he checked. Well, considering that VR has been used in some high-end education facilities in our world, this would seem to be a logical progression of that. In this case, it allows them to be educated without the risk of being killed during the journey to school, along some of the more dangerous alleyways. It's also how some have been educated remotely for much of 2020 and 2021. It's like boarding schools, except the child doesn't have to leave the home. Especially as his violent work could, well, it could make his child's well-being threatened, likely due to reprisals. Then he told Moses that there was something that he couldn't understand, as water was leaking from her room. Unsure if it's blood or seawater, but it was liquid regardless. It was definitely a distortion that had... well, it was certainly an advanced manifestation as far as Moses was concerned, so it was going to be harder. Zhang Li lived in the residential area of the backstreets, one of the safest places to live outside of a nest. A complex of 30-story apartments that were lined up like giant cigarette packets. A cage for chickens about to be slaughtered. That was how Moses described it. Well, the cage for chickens part. The slaughtered part was how I see it implied. She followed Zhang Li to the elevator which took them to the 18th floor. The lamps on that floor automatically flickered on. He opened the door of his apartment, Unit 1807. Moses asked if he lived alone, although she was wise not to ask farther, as he laughed about that and told her that everyone had their stories. Then they heard the shrill shriek in their ears, which was what Zhang They was on about. This was coming from Fei, which was who his daughter was called. When they got to the room, she locked herself in. It was a giant aquarium in red. The room was full of red water about to overflow, with colourful aquatic plants lining the interior, with a gleaming light shining from above as if a light was coming from a hole in the ceiling, and a silhouette of something massive was slowly drifting from a distance. That's how it appeared to her. He couldn't see what was going on like Moses could, as the materialization was incomplete. Moses told him that it's what she's familiar with, which was a relief to Zhang They. He counted on her help. She asked him to trust her, no matter what she does there, as what's about to happen won't be normal. He understood. As she analysed this distortion that was created from Fei, she understood that the red water was a manifestation of depression. Moses used white breath to surround herself in a cloudy mist. She had taken a similar request in the past and knew better than to go in unprepared, as she could drown in Fei's melancholy. The white veil shielded her from the mental corrosion, like the white damage nanotech shield that K-Corp provided L-Corp. It was incomparable to be soaked in another's sadness. This was possibly due to Fei losing her mother. Well, that's the only explanation I can theorize right now. Moses told Fei that she was going in. She was submerged in this red liquid, and all external sounds were cut off, as in everything outside of that room. It was closer to a lake in size, and it was fresh water. The sadness wasn't briny. It wasn't the tear-jerking kind. She then told Yuria that she could talk now, as she jumped out of the coat pocket and went back on her shoulder. Apparently, being in the coat pocket was suffocating, even though she didn't need to breathe in her teddy bear form. Preparations were needed, where Yuria should only speak when necessary, as Vespa, Crabro, and possibly others, such as informants, might be listening on them. Moses asked if that space was similar to her workshop. Yuria agreed, as it was much bigger inside, and there might be something guarding the place like her bears. And Ezra wasn't there to protect her this time. It had been a while since Moses had worked on a case without Ezra. If it weren't for her, she would have been long dead. She thought about what Ezra's doing now, believing that she was likely bored and fell asleep in the hotel room. Yuria saw that place as eerie, yet beautiful. Moses agreed that they should practice extra caution with beautiful distortions, as looks can be deceiving with those, even by the standards of the city. Then they heard laughter. Roses got the red breath and used it to ready a sharp crimson blade from her pipe. Yuria pointed in the general direction to where that sound was coming from. Faint laughter underwater. Moses questioned if she should approach the source of it or move away. She's unsure even with the experience that she had. She ultimately decided to move towards it. Yuria wasn't much help as far as combat was concerned. At least direct combat. As long as she was in her teddy bear form. By her own admission. Yes, by her own admission, she wasn't like her killer teddy bears that she could send in her workshop. And she understood that Moses was being quite profane inside her head. Yet, Yuria can assist her with some prototype ribbons for each colour for her pipe. All Moses needed to do was tell her what colour she needed and she'll tie the right ribbon. As for the functions of them, it will depend on her emotions. Moses looked forward to testing them out, even though she questioned Yuria's attitude towards this. Yuria then asked how she usually solved cases like this. Moses then replied by telling her that she figures out the cause, the reason for it, tracing the clues one by one. In this case, why the room was full of water, why it's red, why it isn't salty. Until she identifies the root of the distortion. Yuria asked if there was if this was a severe case of it. Moses replied that it was possible. And Moses understood that each person was different, as was their distortion. The depth of the trench of the human mind makes it difficult to judge the distortion's nature quickly. She needed to get inside their heads to find out, which was tiring. She then walked towards the source of the laughter, which was mermaids. Yeah, this one's going Hans Christian Andersen on us. But that's for next time. It would appear that Moses and Yuria's aquatic adventure would have to wait until the next lore video, but it's safe to say that they won't be up against a large water dragon with anger issues. That was originally a carp. Until next time, hail the rabbit!